We're delighted to be here today, and David, one of my consultants, is joining me as the second part of our series of events with the Affable Partnership. And today we're talking about HR and personal brand of employees.
Absolutely, this is a big hot topic actually. I've noticed increasingly where you've got HR professionals working with comms professionals and marketing teams to try and develop a much broader sense of how communications is happening within an organisation, and in fact outside an organisation as well. So a question I've got for you is, how have you noticed HR changing? I mean, you've obviously been an HR professional for a very long time, working with lots of clients, etc. Given that everyone within a business is now a brand, how have you noticed how that's impacted on HR and how organisations try and manage the staff within an organisation?
Yeah, and it's interesting because the dynamics of employer and employee relationships have changed hugely, particularly over the last 2 years, with the demographics of those individuals and where they're working. And we all have more access to our phones. We also have to make sure that our employers have social media policies, privacy policies, and also to make sure that they're compliant and there's no breaches.
Yep.
So there's a huge amount that employees could be doing to add value to their in relationships with their business owners.
Right. So in your experience, for example, you mentioned about social media policies. Do you have any clients who've got what I would call a proactive set of social media guidelines? By proactive, whereby it doesn't just say, we say you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do that. It's like, we'd like to protect you, we'd like you to protect ourselves, but what we'd love is if you can go out there and start to champion us. So do you find that's very common, or is that really sort of quite seldom?
I think it's something that they're more and more employers are starting to look at, and looking at a bigger picture and a better opportunity for their employees rather than the don'ts, which you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
A lot of the time with these policies, it says, we have a policy that says this, but actually the reality of it says, but don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. And the reason for that is because of legislation. We have lots of legal requirements for what we have to expect from our employees as businesses, but also case law that we have coming through the employment tribunals is also quite specific about when you can and when you can't have that information. But I do believe that we need to be moving with those times to make sure that those individuals are saying, we want to be able to do this, is that okay? It's all about that communication. And I would always say, get your IT people involved with someone like myself as well as yourself, so that you have that engaging conversation of how you build that policy to make it work for your business and the staff.
That's useful to know. Were you aware of the term brand ambassador in a company before we started chatting?
No.
And it's a fascinating area because this is where you and I really overlap in terms of our expertise. I mean, you're obviously looking at the people within a business. And so am I, but you're looking at people in terms of what they can contribute to the business and what they're doing and how well that business runs as a result of the people within the business. Where I'm then taking the next layer is like, if you've got good people and they have an essential brand quality, could you not build on that? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you had a law firm with 300 employees. So you might have a marketing manager, and the marketing manager will create some dynamic content that they may or may not put on the website or social media or whatever. But then you've got 300 people who are blithely oblivious about what that would be. Well, let's say, wouldn't it be amazing if, let's say, 30 of those 300 people contributed to that content, engaged with that content, and effectively then amplify that content using their own channels, or maybe even a couple of them just said, actually, do you know what, I would like to be in future content. What we're doing is we're taking effectively comms away from just the marketing department, and you are moving it into the employee realm, I'm guessing you're going to tell me there'll be lots of employers who go, oh my God, I'm really scared about that. That's going to be a nightmare because it will sort
complicates matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then we have to make sure that we're compliant, and have we trod on somebody's toes and done something and caused offence, and so they then become a little bit, well, let's not do anything at all because it's just easier to keep the peace and make sure that everyone's happy.
No, and I think unfortunately that is exactly what happens most of the time. People say, oh, we'll decide that we're not going to do anything. The best policy is to do nothing at all, and then it's like, well, you're going to struggle to get your brand out there.
Yeah.
You're going to struggle to find leaders within the organisation. You're going to struggle to get proper engagement around what you're trying to do. And it does come down to having a plan. And if you've got a proper plan for how you're going to bring your employees with you, then that's a lot. We talked a minute ago about social media guidelines. If you had a proper proactive statement, with set of guidelines, part of what I've done when working with firms is I've actually written the guidelines, but then sold them in.
Yeah.
So rather than sending a document round on the email saying, here's the new rules, or else, people go, oh, I'm not doing this. I've had it's like, so we've got this plan. What we want to do as a business, we want to really, really ramp up our awareness on our visibility online. We want to be known as leaders. We want to come up with dynamic ideas, etc. And so we've got these great ideas around content, and we've got a wonderful social media person with us. We've got a marketing team. And by the way, here are our plans. These are the campaigns we're going to run. Isn't this great? And everyone's going, oh, this is fantastic. But then you're saying, now here's where you come in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if, or wouldn't you like to raise your profile, or would it be great if you could contribute in this effort? And then they go, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Then you will get
sense of engagement,
absolutely,
motivation, feeling good about what they're doing,
absolutely,
actually on point with what's in the current market, and feeling like they want to contribute.
And then you've got willing people within the organisation who are up for it and want to get involved. But again, it still comes back down to having a plan. And actually, it's almost part of the overall business plan. I'm sure. I mean, you work with senior managers and company owners, etc., and directors. I'm guessing you will be working with them on their strategy of the overall organisation, because it's the people.
Yes.
Without the people, they have no organisation.
Yeah.
So, in your experience, again, do you think that some of the business owners and managing directors and senior management teams, do you think that comms is coming into play at all, or is it something they think is elsewhere, or we've got a marketing manager who looks after that? Yeah,
you tend to find sometimes when you're doing seeking out with the relationship that you build with the clients, it's all about finding out what their needs are, what they want to do, what they want more of, how they're going to do it. And I think it's that really is just so important about, well, just because that job title seems to take care of it doesn't mean that other people can't have that information. I've said this to clients in the past when we've had a situation, this is slightly off piece, but a redundancy situation where somebody says, well, actually, we're restructuring. We need to have a meeting with all these individuals, but one individual comes out with a golden nugget of information that the business owner has never actually thought about.
Yeah.
So applying that to what you were just talking about, David, is really, really important, because you then go, they've said something that we hadn't even thought about. And who's to say, like we've talked about before, where we said there isn't an entrepreneurial skill or contribution from that individual who can then help drive that forward and actually is quite passionate about it.
Yeah.
Suddenly their eyes lit up, they're excited, they want to do more for the business. And that's what, I always say, the what gets you up in the morning, it's your fire in your belly to say, well, actually, this is my drive, this is why I want to do what I do and why I love doing what I do for the Affable Partnership. But realistically, it's taking those businesses forward.
Yes, it's fascinating what you're saying, because again, that little nugget of information which no one ever come up with before. I've done the same when I'm working with clients, is where what I've done is created effectively an internal news team of individuals who aren't news people or marketing people, but you have a group of people who meet regularly to discuss what's going on in the organisation, and then putting a little bit of a journalistic prism through it. And then someone will come up and say, oh, by the way, we had this client who did X, Y, and Z, and be, my God, that's amazing. And you say, well, that's exactly what we need to put on our socials.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't asked them, they'd never volunteered it. So I think, again, this is this great crossover between what we do, is just trying to get the very best out of the most valuable resource in the business, which is the human beings.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you like, the analogy I would draw is that you're working on the cake. The bit I'm looking at is the icing, is if you've got a really good, strong team, people working for each other, working towards a common culture, where they're incentivized, they're motivated, they're often being trained and upskilled. If you've got that situation, then you say, right, now what we can do is start coming up with something even better, which is to try and transform some of those people into real brand ambassadors, which is what we're all about.
And I love that term. I think it's a really nice complimentary way of saying that to somebody that works for your business, even though they may have a job title in their work, everyday working right, to actually be saying a brand ambassador. It's just it's a really great title.
Absolutely, and I think this, just to conclude now, I'd say that what we're talking about here is this whole notion of employee advocacy, and certainly what I'd say is, if anyone's watching this and they want to understand a little bit more about how they can use this great resource they've got even better, then come and give us a buzz and we'll be happy to go and talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you. My pleasure. Great to see you, and I'll see you again soon.
Thanks very much. Thanks for watching.